Okay, chapter 11 today, and it is called A Lesson in Creation. Okay, very, very full chapter. And as we just had a brief little discussion, I picked 3 points, but there are like 2 more points that we could add. There's so many different angles in which we can discuss this chapter. So there is a quotation on the, what was it again? 40 loaves of bread and put Karen on the spot here to look for the.
I'm just trying to. Wait, does it actually? I must say fishes, doesn't it? Do you have it, Michael? What it said?
It was the loaves and fishes, and it was near the start of the chapter.
It's the near start, yeah.
Feeding 5,000 people from like 5 loaves and 2 fishes.
Yeah, okay. So
it's on page 112.
There it is. Yes, 112. Okay. Okay. So, okay. And Michael, can you make some comments on what you've learned since about that quotation?
Well, I was first introduced to that quotation through a writing of Jesus through Dr. Samuels in the 60s. And he was talking about miracles recorded in the Bible that didn't really take place.
Okay.
And one of them that he mentioned was the loaves and the fishes.
Yeah.
And that the crowd was smaller than it was described in the Bible, and it just didn't happen the way it was said to.
Okay.
And so I'm wondering, I can see the point being made of collecting all the fragments.
Yeah.
And nothing being lost. And then also you have mentioned the idea that, well, Jesus being vegan, would he have served or permitted fish to be served to all of the listeners?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So there are corrections to be made along the way. Thank you. But yeah, it's a good parable, I guess, because it's a familiar parable that can be used to make a point. Could be why it was kept that way. Okay, and then thank you for that, Karen. And then Laura had mentioned her interest in the topic of reincarnation. So
I think Karen wanted to say something to
oh, sorry, I can't see raised hand at this point. Sorry, thank you, Laura.
Just really quickly, I can't remember what talk it's in, but I do remember Jesus talking about this one. And I remember him saying that, yeah, he didn't multiply the fishes because he was vegan, but I can't, it is in a talk somewhere, but I can't remember which one. I just wanted to quickly add that.
Did he multiply the bread?
I think there was multiplication. Yeah, there was, I think the bread but yeah, not fish.
Okay. And there's some ideas in the later on in the chapter where they're talking about how when the lady was making grass, she was teaching about how you utilize elements in the environment to make grass. And it's like, oh, you can literally, I guess not really, it's a miracle because we're not used to it, but you can still use existing principles to pull in material and resources from your environment to multiply bread. Even that could be like a thing that you can actually do scientifically if you knew which rules to engage, maybe. So, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it like it's demonstrating that paragraph that Michael just read. It's demonstrating the scope principle that you know everything can be built on from the smaller particles, and you can build different things. And just what you were saying then, Mila, that you can make things if you know, how to do it. It's pretty cool.
I would love to know what those are. Oh,
yeah,
so cool. And then Laura.
Yeah, there was apparently like the Gospel of a Scene that was sort of just left out of the Bible. I remember reading about it in a nutrition book once, and that has a lot to do with Jesus' veganism and soaking of the grain and all of that kind of thing. I want to get my hands on it because I want to read through it. It also talks about the mother-father God being both feminine and masculine qualities. But it would be interesting to see, if there's any sort of correlation or correction, or it's just interesting that they just happen to leave parts of the Bible out. I'm sure there's so much that's been left out that's probably got some whopper truths in it.
And that's okay. So, and that was in a nutrition book.
Yeah. I can't even. I don't know. I probably still got it somewhere. I'm not sure which one it was now, but
That'd be amazing.
There was some sort of thing in there. But my friend has actually bought that book, and he just says it's amazing. So,
wow.
Gospel of a Scene, something of peace. I'll try and find it and put the link on the chat for you all. But be interesting, to see what's in there.
And Selena, did you have a comment? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, so reincarnation. Having grown up in the East, there was a very solid concept in my culture growing up, and all the different religions I was exposed to growing up. But somewhere in the early 2000s, when I was teaching lots of intuition workshops, which was a passion of mine, before discovering the divine truth, I started to receive these feelings that actually there's no such thing. So it was it was a pretty difficult, because you're the only one thinking that, but the feeling has already entered me that there is actually no such thing as reincarnation. So I spent a couple of decades of working through my emotions around it. So I feel like, this is pretty loaded. Like, I still don't openly speak about it with other friends of the culture. What are your thoughts about reincarnation and how it's viewed? Laura, do you want to start? The damage that that's doing? Yeah,
sure. I guess it's a pretty common belief system, even in the New Age community. When I was going through that phase, I totally believed that I had been here before, and there was almost like an egotistical kind of feeling that I got from having been here before as well. Like,
okay,
it made me, like, I had these addictive feelings that made me feel like more special or something like that. So I just think it's a pretty interesting belief system, and what's sort of how loaded it is as well.
okay.
There are only 2 points.
Right, our addictions get met with that belief, so we're very invested in the belief. Is that how you feel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you kind of I don't know, there's a confusion there. So it's sort of, you don't know if it's this life or last life, or and it just kind of puts you in that place of not really having to deal with how you feel about what's happened in your life now. So it's like you can avoid feeling you're hurt by believing this thing to be a past life or something.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, it's a way of distracting, and also it also kind of legitimizes spirit influence, because now spirits are beginning to tell you their stories, and you're going, oh, that's just my past life experience. I'm just going to keep opening up to it, and you're allowing an even bigger intermingling with spirits.
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting topic.
Now I'm beginning to remember that I used to have this feeling of, oh, well, if something didn't happen for me this time, guess I'll come back and do it next time, which is a way of avoiding so much grief about what I don't get to have. So that probably is a pretty main motivation. Selena.
I think Laura mostly said it. Yeah, I agree. It just really opens you up to a lot more darkness, and people really get into going to people who read their past lives and they accumulate them and start feeling pretty good about themselves and have all these injuries that obviously maybe the people that they're reading your injuries that you have that attract them to you or something.
Yes.
That now you can, you just can really, I think, contribute to darkness, more
Okay.
darkness of the soul, like a deterioration. Yeah.
But we're really drawn to it. Now, it's really interesting when I used to do, people would come to me for intuitive readings long before I knew Divine Truth, and they'll come asking for past life teachings. And I'll say, for some reason, my spirit guides never give me information about past lives. So sorry, like I would just never receive any. And I was like, oof, somebody was watching over me, even though I was very invested in the idea because that's what I grew up in and have absorbed all those emotions in my soul. So, but I like the idea of how invested we are in that. Like we can't even talk to other people because they're invested in that belief. Judith?
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's like you do a lot of bad things in life and then you start to degrade physically. And then you think, well, I'm just going to come back again. I'll start all over again. And I know people that are in the same boat too, where they're becoming very sick and they're really heavily invested into reincarnation. And one, in fact, wants to commit suicide at a certain age, And,
Okay, so there are two things going on there. One is whatever is going on for you now, you get to have certain addictive emotions about it. And two is there's this feeling that it'll all just get wiped clean. It just come right back. What emotions are driving that desire to feel like, oh, well, I'm getting sick and I'm going to die, but whatever, I'll just come back? What emotions are driving that? Laura?
Yeah, so I think there's a lack of wanting to take responsibility for your condition. Yeah, and like a massive avoidance going on.
Okay.
But also just not wanting to feel the hurt that's inside of us from our upbringing. We want to remain in this space where we don't want to believe that really hurt us. Like we want to sort of be tough because that's what society tells us we should be. And so just often to that, like as everything in our environment is telling us not to. So it's kind of almost easier just to not go there and avoid and
You don't have to soften to your current pain, which will only add more pain. You want to keep being tough and then just think you can have a redo.
Yeah, because we believe feeling the pain is adding pain. It's like not feeling the pain equals good, but feeling the pain equals bad. So we don't want to do that.
Judith?
Yeah, well, there's almost a mentality that we're supposed to feel pain. It's like, well, you're born into this life and you chose a certain path in order to feel emotional pain. And I tell people that say that, well, we're not supposed to feel any pain, actually. And pain is a warning.
I like that. Yeah. So it's actually, you like what Laura's pointing out. It's actually legitimizing the abuse we experience because we chose it for whatever growth we needed to, or in my culture, well, this is what you did to somebody else in the past life. So now this time they're getting even with you, so you got to take it. And that actually explains a lot of my father's side of the family accepting and enduring the abuses from my mother and her side of the family, because the belief is that we've earned it and now we got to pay it back by taking it. So again, it says that, if you abuse somebody, now you got to let them abuse you back to even the score. So it's eye for an eye kind of a feeling. And that you are enabling it because somehow you earned it. So which feeds into the cycle of blame. So there's that too. Yeah, so it is about giving your parents a kind of like letting them have a break, like getting them off the hook, right? Like, oh yeah, just tough up and that's okay, you'll come back. And okay, Jill, go ahead.
Well, it's the karma mentality, right? right? If you do something bad to me, well, you're just gonna have to repay that in your next life, kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, I have friends that are full believers of that, not the believers of well, I've had a bad life, because they're so in denial of that, but of all the hurt that has been put onto them, they're very much like, well, they'll just have to repay it. You know, karma's a bitch. They're gonna have to repay it in a past life anyways, or in a future life anyways. So they use it on that flip side as well.
And come back to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Continue.
There's this element of justice that people want to justify things that are happening, like not good events,
Yeah.
and somehow justify them, that's why they're happening, that it's because of past karma.
So,
And
right. So with my family, it's the
but-
same way. So what do you feel we're avoiding by doing that? By saying, oh, well, I must deserve it. This must be part of justice or karma. So what do you get to avoid feeling by doing that?
well, your own responsibility as to why it is actually happening, and that perhaps you've created this yourself, for yourself. Some of it can be from your parents. We do inherit some.
Yeah.
But then that's me as a parent taking responsibility for some of the things I've passed on to my kids.
Right.
Rather than like, well, you know, he's just here to learn these lessons. He must have chosen them. Like, not me.
Yeah, I see.
I was a good mom. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just
Good
it gets
observation.
used to justify so many things and to procrastinate.
That's
And to not take that responsibility, which has been mentioned before already.
And,
Yeah.
and also it's a way of not having to feel that I did not deserve what's happening to me. It is unfair. And I have to experience that I am powerless and helpless, and there was no rhyme or reason for that terrible thing happening to me. I didn't deserve it. You know, when you're children.
So the punishment,
Impoverished
punishing
children.
ourselves. Yeah. So we punish ourselves. We think we deserve the punishment.
Instead of feeling the pain of we didn't deserve it, we did nothing wrong. It is wrong, it is unfair. It takes us to a different kind of pain. I guess powerlessness, helplessness. Like it really does. I just imagine it, I'm going, no, that is real powerlessness feeling coming up in me, even speaking about it. So that's the emotion we're trying to avoid. And yeah, somehow finding a way to blame ourselves, because it is a type of self-blame. I am to blame, or letting somebody else blame us for what's happening. So no, good observation, thank you. And was it Judith and Selena who also raised your hands? Yeah, okay. Selena, did you have some comments?
To me, from what I read about the caste system and people that have had past life readings, it really feeds superiority.
Okay.
You know, because often their past lives are, well, they were an emperor and they were, you know, not just ordinary people. Hardly ever.
Everyone
often.
is a
Yeah.
Cleopatra? Is that the one that...
Yeah, or some king or somebody. And also the readings that I've had about the caste system, it kind of gives you permission if somebody's at a low caste, like you can treat them as badly as you want because they're low caste, and that's their karmic destiny. And even the priest will say, well, that's the only way you're going to elevate your karmic status is if you take this, you allow yourself to be abused, and people can even kill you if they want that have a higher karmic level than you. And that's okay, because that's how you get to be better. Yeah. So it's really feeds superiority, in my opinion. Big time. Yeah.
Wow, this is a hot topic. Okay, and here I was trying to skip the whole thing altogether, going, oh, we got this figured out. We all know what truth is. Let's let it go. I should think about why I wanted to avoid that. Okay, so the next point that we have from the book discussion was about that it takes time for us to develop. There's so much conversation about the step by step, and how everything is very meticulously planned out, and there's so much time and effort put into how long it takes to develop, and that Earth life is just the first step of our development. What resonates for you around that theme in this book, in this chapter? Virginia?
I was watching one of the YouTube videos, and Mary, this was mentioned, and she was demonstrating with Jesus that there was some stairs and a stage. Like, and they were saying, you know, how we don't want to take this step, this to get up here. We want to take this big step and, you know, see how this doesn't work. I can't reach that step. We want to go, we don't want to go through all the steps.
Yes.
We just want to go to that elevation and go to that, you know, that high place that we foresee for, you know, ourselves, that we want to be there. Yeah. So I thought a lot about that, because yeah, because sometimes I don't want to take the steps.
Okay.
I just want to go, I just want to skip through them.
Yeah.
Go.
What
Yeah.
did it drive that? Because that's a cultural thing or a global thing for all of us. What is it that, you know, the idea of it's going to take lots of steps, persistent, constant development all the time, especially in the first stage is about just removing the sin and the error we have inside of us. Like, that's the starting place. I was trying to do all these other steps, and I was like, no, first I got to remove the addiction. Back to basic. Let's forget all the other fancy stuff. Just get rid of the pain first. Or causing pain. Never mind getting rid of the pain. That's a hurt stuff. Stop causing it.
Because it looks really hard.
It looks hard
to be
okay,
doing.
it looks hard.
All these baby steps, they look really, it looks hard sometimes when you.
Okay. But we have some kind of a global attitude about getting straight to the top. Karen?
Yeah, I think it's maybe a couple of things. Just I think in Western society, we're so used to getting what we want, when we want, how we want it. It's just so instant. And so the thought of having to go through all the steps, like even if I just walk into the supermarket and pick up a bunch of food, I haven't had to go through the whole process of making that and do that. And so I feel, especially in Western society, this kind of feeling of just, we don't want to have to do all the steps. And I think maybe a little bit what Virginia was alluding to about just, most of us just don't want to feel our pain. We just don't want to go through that. We just want to jump over it to the finish and not have to go through. Yeah.
Many small steps. And I like what you brought up there, that this is the addiction that has given us this false idea. So we're going to have to first confront the addiction that you can't get what you want when you want it. Something is wrong with the whole thing. Grieve that that's not how the world works. And then start to see how is the world created. And then see like, oh, there are a million steps every step of the way. So yeah, I see now the addiction driving that. Woo, we are in a world of pain when we wake up to that. Like we haven't even begun taking the steps if we're still in the addiction. Or saying, well, I want what I want when I want it. Where's the gate of heaven now? You haven't even begun. You got to stop the addiction first and go into, I'm assuming, a pretty big depression about the very idea of having to give that up. Jill?
From a marketing standpoint, we have taught people this. The instant gratification is something that our marketing in all areas has taught us. You want the latest iPhone? Well, go out and get it. You want the latest, anything, go out and get it. And you want the latest food, you want the latest new product on the market, go out and get it. And that instant gratification has really been almost brainwashed into us that this is a good thing. This instant gratification is a good thing. And we couldn't survive without instant gratification.
wow, we are in quite a bit of trouble then, because we do this a lot. I'm just coming to terms with what, yeah, okay. It's deliberately manipulated so that we don't have to feel. Well, there's so much joy when you think of it, when you have to, like looking at children learning to walk. How many steps it takes for the kid to learn, and how many things does the kid learn along the way in every step of the instruction, like all the different balancing and perception and feedback and all of the neurobiology going on in there. How satisfying it is, and how lifelong, it's like a lifelong stability and foundation for everything else that happens with a child. Like we're missing out on a lot of joy and growth from not taking small steps. Selena.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of direction I was going in. Is I think we think in our minds that once you get to really high spheres, that you'll there will be more joy with like you accumulate the joy as you go along, but each step, like even now we can experience that much joy with a step, with our small step.
Yeah.
So just enjoy that. I think it's about enjoying the process. I know it is for me, and not trying to be so task oriented with it. Just enjoy it, the process.
Was it in book 1, Through the Mist, that I've read, why did I come across this? That God created a world in which God wanted us to enjoy the getting to, not the destination. It is the getting to, it's the process, it's step by step. That is the point of existence, not getting there, because I just want to get out of committing sin as fast as I can. But then there is something, maybe there's something, and maybe what we're doing right now in the steps we're taking is how we develop the foundation for the rest of our existence. Like maybe we're learning to walk here, so we don't want to rush it. We want to get every step figured out. That could be an idea. I'm just telling myself, I'm just in preschool. Take it easy. Take a step back. Let that ego drop. You're just in preschool. You haven't figured it out. So I tantrum for about a week, but now I feel better. I was a little offended, like I'm just in preschool and my brain guy's all smarter than me and blah, 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 blah. I was a little snippy, but I feel better about it somehow. Laura?
Yeah, just with what Jill was saying, even the New Age kind of community plays on that a bit, and it must be the spirits playing on it as well, giving you this false sense of idea that you can make progress by just something happening instantly, and you not having to actually do anything.
Yes.
You can just go to someone, get healed,
but
you don't take into account that after 2 weeks, that's kind of, or maximum 2 weeks, that's null and void anyway. You're back to where you were, but you don't even think, I've spent all this money and I've gotten really nothing out of it except for a story.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you bring something up here. And also from what Jill was saying, it was interesting. I almost spoke about it and then some spirits just took the idea out of me. So a lot of the suffering we see in the Western country is about them feeling really upset that they didn't get what they want when they wanted it. And that we're all supposed to now jump in and help them out to cope with this thing that they're like, to them, it's like a legitimate depression and sadness. And I am so unhappy. And why aren't you helping me? And we all feel pressure to sympathize with each other when what we think is our misery is just about not getting the marketing thing happening. I didn't get what I want when I wanted. And now I'm very, very miserable. And now please come help me cope or help make it better or do a GoFundMe and it's like, it's about that idea that we have that we should get what we wanted is creating depressions that people think needs to be treated instead of experienced because you're in a tantrum. That's we're in trouble. I'm just going, my goodness, yeah, we're in trouble. This is a pretty big problem. Okay, so what else comes up for you that it takes a long time to develop? Or it takes a lot of steps to develop. It may not even be a long time if you're taking all the right steps. Small steps. Judith?
Well, I guess for me, it would be like just general humility. and
Right.
feeling like I have bad emotions, like we've talked about, in me that I don't want to admit. And I think many people are like that. We want to put out the facade of how smart and wonderful and nice we are.
Yes.
It's not true, you know.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to take that step to just feel.
Yeah.
Own what you feel.
Right. Because at
accepting it.
at the end of it, you probably are smart.
Yeah.
And nice and wonderful. But you're going to have to get under the addictions to discover that anyway,
Yeah.
instead of hiding. Yeah. Okay. Huh. Okay. There was a thought there and it's been taken out of my head again. It's that kind of day for me today. So Virginia.
I keep feeling like we're talking about superiority again.
Okay.
Because, you know, with the marketing and just the way our culture is, that it's the better, stronger, faster.
Yeah.
You know, that I'm smarter, I can condense this so that I don't have to do all these little steps. You know, I can do this, like I can figure this out, I can somehow make this easier. Again, I think that's us avoiding our pain, but there's, I don't know, I feel the superiority in it when you think like that.
Okay.
And I think like that there's, that you're somehow smarter if you can just, like you can overcome it, you can overstep it.
Come is the word. Yeah.
And you can't, and you can't. You can't,
Well,
and accepting that.
and yet,
that
interestingly enough, if you figure out the steps and you develop in a certain way, God has intended that nature is the baseline, but you can figure out how to make the same thing happen quicker and faster. Like in the chapter, there is the discussion that you are supposed to be able to do that. So we know we should be able to do it, but we're looking for it addictively instead of going somewhere else and developing to, I don't know, 5th sphere, 6th sphere, wherever you need to get to be able to do the same thing. But by following the laws, which require you to learn all the steps. So it's interesting that what we're looking for is probably okay. But because, for example, getting what you want when you want it, as soon as you want it, well, when you're at one with God, that's what I heard is like. Instantaneous reception of all your desires. It's like you want something, boom, there it is. So that seems to be like the out of harmony and the in harmony way. Like we want something addictively without having earned it by taking all the small steps to get there and then doing it the right way. So that's an interesting thought. I don't know where I'm going with that. Somebody else had raised their hand. Was it Lauren? Who was it? Yes.
Yeah, I did, and Jill as well. I think you might have been first, Jill. No.
Oh, she's
good. Dharm said what I was going to say.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, something popped into my head just about the competitive nature of people as well, of wanting to not just only strive, but willing to pull people down to get there. Yeah, and like Virginia said, there is a superiority, like an arrogance about that,
yeah.
Of being better than others and
yeah,
that kind of thing. So yeah.
It's painful to challenge that addiction because I'm trying to challenge this addiction right now. And I feel like if I lift somebody else up, I'm going to feel this small. So I deliberately lean into it going, okay, you're going to do this thing and you're going to help lift somebody else up and you're going to feel like you're nothing, do it. Just so I can kind of like burn that addiction. So I'm very aware of what that addiction is like while having compassion on how it got created in my childhood. I just want it gone. Like we got to not judge the fact that that's us. You know, we are superior. We feel competitive. And my marker is going to be that when I feel that lifting somebody up is equal to lifting me up, is the same thing. I'm going to see that, oh, finally I'm healed. Like that's going to be my way of measuring that I must have healed this issue because it no longer feels like I'm going to get very diminished, which is the addiction challenging phase of the same emotion. Because yeah, when you're competitive you have to bring somebody else down. But when you're healed, you want to bring somebody else up, because then you bring everybody else up. Everybody carries unique gifts that we all need right now. And if you help somebody else to connect to that gift, that's going to serve everyone. So it's something I'm currently challenging. And it's terrible. It's like a vampire being exposed to the sun. It's how terrible it feels to me. So I'm trying to be courageous to do it. Yeah.
There's the opposite too, hey, like where you will purposefully put others up
Yeah.
or in front of you so that you can continue to feel
Inferior.
inferior, like like a really self-punishing kind of thing. Yep.
Selena?
It sounds to me, if you're coming to it from that place, it's an addiction to helping. When you're not feeling like you're lifting yourself up, so you just keep lifting up others, but in reality, you just have an addiction to helping. If it doesn't
That could be something to think about. Okay. Yeah.
I think. I don't know.
Look at it.
It made sense in my head.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I can start to connect the dots and see how that works out. But then like Laura's pointing out, if it then makes you feel inferior, that's what you're actually addicted to. You're addicted to.
Yeah.
And so it again is not in harmony.
Yeah, so you're addicted to helping because it keeps you feeling inferior, and you want to feel that because you don't want to.
Yeah. So just as damaging. And yet the healthy place is going to be where you want to help others grow without it being at the expense of yourself. It feels really tricky for me right now, but I guess we'll find out when we get there. Ideas about that? If others who have healed that part in themselves and they know what it feels like on their way to figuring it out? Okay. That's going to be a good one. I would love the day when this is gone from me. Oh, it's going to be a marvelous day. So, because you can feel how painful it is, and yet you got what you got and you got to work with it. So, okay, so let's move on to, there was some discussion on no one is lost or abandoned in God's world, but I'm interested in the definition of education in Summerland. Let's talk about, Michael, did you have something you wanted to share in the second part?
It was for the last part that you were discussing.
Yeah, go ahead.
It strikes me in two ways. One is politically, the mark of a leader is you propose a solution to a problem, and then you say you can do that, and then you get people's enthusiasm and support, and you go out and try to do it. But solving a problem like peace in the Middle East, it's so much more difficult than that, and it overlooks. And I think we can easily be manipulated when we believe in an instant or an easy solution. And for me personally, I thought that, I could just decide to become or do something. And I thought I could become at one with God in a matter of months. And I missed all of the, I didn't understand about reflection and looking around me to see what the law of compensation would teach me, and about going to God for answers. I just thought I could plow ahead. And anyway, I've kind of lost my train of thought, but I haven't really grasped the idea that it's a slow. The important journey is the slow one, and I think there are no shortcuts. Everybody has to go through all the steps. And this is a way that God makes sure that we all get it. We can't skip over things. Okay, that's all I have to say.
And Michael, I feel like what you're beginning to appreciate is to not skip any steps. But once you figure it out, you can do the steps pretty quickly. So I think the speed itself isn't the point, but the steps. But in order to figure out the steps, it can take us a while. So it could be fast for you, Michael, once you figure out that the steps around law of compensation and all of that. Once you figure out the steps, then you can probably get there pretty quick, especially once you figure out all the judgments.
Okay.
So, you know what, speaking of that, why are we addicted to easy solution? What is that? What are we avoiding by wanting easy, quick solutions? And we keep getting duped by all of those politicians or leaders or new age teachers. And Jill?
From my experience, I think it's, I see a lot of not wanting to do the hard work.
Okay, what is that about, do you feel?
Well, I see it a lot in, and I apologize for sort of lumping an age group and having that ageism there, but I do see it a lot in like the 18 to kind of 20-year-olds, where they came from a background of everything has been done for them.
Yeah.
So they haven't had to do any of the hard work. So like the, you know, the money is there, the, you know, they've never had to grow a vegetable, they've never had to wait for anything. And I find that when it comes to actually having to put the effort in and do the hard work of it, with the possibility, and maybe that's the possibility of failing.
Okay. We don't want to feel the emotion of failing.
Yeah. That they don't, because I do get a lot of, well, can you just do this for me? Or can you just give this to me? Or can you just, that kind of feedback of not wanting to do the steps.
But I'm beginning to feel now that it's because we were told, well, if you're superior, you shouldn't have to do all the steps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're superior. I can kind of see it now, that could be driving it. If you were worthy, you didn't have to, you can just pick up the sword, or like in Thor, you can just pick up the hammer, and whatever worthy means. Karen?
I was going to say, I really feel it goes back to what Laura was saying about self-responsibility.
Yeah.
It's just that we don't want to take self-responsibility. We don't want to have to do it ourselves. We don't want to have to go through all the steps. We want someone else to do it because that's easier. I kind of feel like we're going in a circle.
Yes. I do kind of enjoy opening every rock and go, what's out of here? What's out of here? So sorry about that. But so it's about parents, because I'm one of those parents that's created two of those children. It's about parents not teaching self-responsibility, because I have an addiction for being needed. I get a lot of worth out of it. So in order to be needed, they needed me to, take care of it, because then I felt needed. And in that situation, I have now not taught them self-responsibility principle. So it looks like parents are failing to teach that to kids. Yeah, for whatever addictive reasons we have. And Laura, was it you raise your hand? Oh, Judith.
I just wanted to say that also in Summerland in the book, they don't have to grow the grass. It's already there, but they learn how. But all their needs are provided for. But they're not spoiled like our children are.
Ooh, I like what you just pointed out there. They don't have to grow the grass. In fact, the teacher can just instantaneously manifest it. And yet they were encouraged to have the joy of learning how. And it was somehow the opportunity was created so that they would want to learn how. And now they're going through all the steps it takes in making it wrong and learning how and what it's about. And then the teacher encouraging them, it takes time to be perfect. This is how it's supposed to be. You are supposed to be making mistakes. You are supposed to be learning what you missed along the process. So that's a really good refrain there, Judith, that somehow these children are taking a lot of steps and taking the time to figure out how to grow grass. And I'm thinking, grass? Ugh, you're spending time growing a grass? How beautiful is this piece of grass? Like, that's the one most undervalued vegetable, plant, nature on the planet, and yet they're learning to appreciate grass. Even I want to go sit with a piece of grass now, going, what am I missing here? But they're being encouraged to want to learn how to grow one. So that's, and they're learning stuff that nobody on earth know how to do. Oh my God, you're just going to manifest grass? Laura.
Yeah, firstly, who wants to go to school in Summerland? Like I had so much grief come up about that.
Yeah.
Because it just seems like so beautiful compared to what our school system is. But it just feels so beautiful, like the care that's given to these children to learn and to explore God's creations. And I remember having that feeling when I was a kid, just looking at this thing and going, I should be able to, like, I had this feeling I should be able to ask what the purpose of this thing is and know. And I was like, this whole thing, and I'm like, it's missing, like, what's going on, you know? And then find out years later that actually that's potentially what is supposed to be here, and available to us. So yeah, I had a massive cry over that. Just that's actually a thing that we can achieve by connecting with God and learning.
And that the way nature is designed by God is to instigate questions, is to make us wonder and ask questions. But we don't even look at nature that way anymore. We've kind of numbed out to noticing this beautiful landscape that must be similar to what Krishna is doing over there. Selena?
I find it interesting actually that they did use grass, because grass on planet Earth is the most important plant, because
that's a good point.
the grasslands are being destroyed, and they are so perfectly designed when everything's working properly to absorb the carbon, which is our big issue. So grass is our most important plant, like just grassland, wild grasses. So it's interesting to me that they actually, the humble grass is actually the most important plant.
I need to go research grass just so I can learn to.
Oh yeah. Kiss the ground, I think. Kiss the ground.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. I saw that documentary. Okay, yes, thank you.
Yes, they talk about grass, I think, on that.
Yes, they did. Karen.
I was just going to say I loved this quote in the book, which relates to that, where it says, the most striking adaptations were to be found in the open air, where a system of landscape gardening had been adopted, which I can only describe as the interrogative. Everything everywhere appeared to be designed to prompt questions, and so effectively was this carried out that I fell into the trap myself and was asking for information at every turn of my head. And I just think that's so amazing. I would just love to see a garden like that that's being designed. I just can't imagine like that you would just ask a question out of every single thing that you see. So I think that, we've got a lot to learn on Earth about how we can produce things. Because I kind of just look at kids say, well, you know, there's so much emphasis on devices and things like that, and not so much in getting them, we're kind of telling them a lot of information without them having to question.
Yes.
So much is provided without them having to question things. So I'd love to see a garden like that.
2 points there. One is about getting children to ask, because then you teach once they ask. There's that respect of learning and respecting a child as an equal, that, you know,
and responding to desire, isn't it? Like their desire to learn rather than forcing them to learn something at
Learn.
school. You have to learn this math. Like,
And the second point you brought up there is to create an environment that makes them ask, so that you can then have it's like you're like, I want an excuse to teach you. How can I get you to ask so that I can then teach you? Like there's this enthusiasm in the adults to go, can I help create an opportunity and an excuse to get you to ask so that I can, give you this knowledge? Seems to be the second part there that I feel you're bringing up.
Because I thought it was a really interesting use of the word, like in that paragraph it said interrogative, like the system of landscape gardening had been adopted, which I can only describe as the interrogative. So it's like, it's forcefully asked, like making you ask questions almost. So that's
what would that
really
look like? Can we come up with an idea? If you were to
I can't even comprehend it. That's why I really want to see it. I don't know what and I remember Mary talking about it in the God's Laws. I don't know, it was one of the questions. She was saying how we could like design a garden that would invite questions, or we could make some artwork that would make people question and teach people rather than just doing art for beauty or things like that. So
you know what I was just thinking, what just popped in my mind, somebody must have just popped the image. You know how we have ant homes, but they make the ant in like a glass aquarium. You put that in a garden because you can see through what the ant homes look like and what's going on in there and what all the different roles are, because it's transparent. And you put it in one of the gardens, the kids are going to run and go, what, like 50 questions coming out right there. I wonder if that's what that could look like. Or if you have telescopes or microscopes lying around, or Selena?
Oh, actually, that made me think of how science is just starting to really see plants from a different place. The communication between trees, like in a forest, like they talk to each other. Like, so I would almost see a Summerland, you'd be able to actually see that, or it would be demonstrated actually, the interrelationships and the communication between plants and the bacteria in the ground. And because they communicate too, because they're discovering that that the bacteria in our gut is actually communicating with some of our physical processes.
Yeah.
But like when they're absent, a certain type of bacteria is missing, there's a glitch in the system because they communicate. I find that stuff just so amazing. So maybe it's being able to more see those kinds of connections, the interconnectedness of it all.
Kiss the Ground was a really good documentary. Like that
it was really good.
Questions on that documentary. Okay, so how would we? Okay, thank you, Jill. Do you have an example of who else was? I'm not very focused today visually with a headache. Laura, go ahead.
Yeah, it just reminds me of those, you know how that you can connect a plant leaf to like a little mini synthesizer, and then you are like a sensory garden where you're able to touch the plant and hear the music that it plays. And that can be like one way that you can kind of connect to how interconnected everything is electrically as well.
That is a fantastic idea. Okay, so there are ways we're just not thinking that way, but people are already doing stuff like that, aren't they? It's everywhere. Selena?
And Carillion photography would be another one. They've done things with plants with that too, and how they respond to their environment using that kind of stuff. It's almost like, taking pictures of the auras of the plants.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really beautiful. It's really...
So if you're a garden that has this kind of artwork to demonstrate, then makes
I think that could be that's the only thing I can think of is those types of things that would make that kind of garden. Yeah.
If you were to create a garden for ourselves, that would get us, because we have lost our desire to constantly be asking questions. Like we are also those children that are numbed out and not asking questions anymore. So how would you design your environment in which you would feel inspired to start questioning and researching? What would you have in your environment? Virginia?
Somehow the absence of fear of being wrong when you ask a question or answer a question, because the kids did try to manifest and create the grass. And not
yeah.
all of them were able to do it, but it was handled very
Yes.
lovingly.
They were
So I
told.
think that would increase the desire to continue to ask questions and to learn when you don't have, there's not going to be any punishment or negative feedback if you're wrong and you don't get it right the first time.
Or now that we're adults, if we can process the emotions of being wronged or being ridiculed and going on, carrying on anyway. Like if I'm to learn something that I'm really interested in, and I'm 50-year-old, like I have passion for math. I keep wanting to go back and keep studying more math. And it's like, what would it look like for a 50-year-old woman to go back and study math? It's like, I need to be humble to the emotions that's going to come up for me around wanting to learn and being ridiculed or whatever. And being okay, asking a 20-year-old, can you help me work through the theorem or whatever? So it's about us being able to process, because we can't expect the world to change how it's treating us. I have a huge addiction that knowledge is what. So I also have a strong feeling of not wanting to feel like I didn't know something or I was wrong. So that's something I also have to face. Yeah. Okay, so but I like what you said, absence of fear to be wrong, or being willing to process the fear of being wrong until it's gone, and then you're just in the joy of. So maybe that's a good answer. How do I create an environment that will create my curiosity again? Well, I need to release the trauma of being wrong and what it felt like, and then no longer have it dictate my numbness or my freezing about it. So that's a good point. What else? Selena?
Oh, I actually have a question that came up when I was reading about the grass. Are they teaching children how things are created there? Or are they teaching, like, because she was talking about synthesis and I think and chlorophyll, it's like that's earth science. So is that the same in Summerland? Is how everything is created? My impression is that it's not. So is it more about connecting them? Because my impression is that these are children that have not had much of an earth life. And so it's also about teaching them how to connect to their humanity, how to connect to earth in some way, because they're not ever having the experience of it.
I think there's grass.
That's part of it.
No, there's grass in Summerland.
Yeah, there is grass, but does
Yeah.
it grow the way our grass grows? I'm just a question. I have no idea. That's what's happening. Is
That's
things grow and happen? Because it sort of seems like things they're just sort of just manifest. They create out of desire. Like, is there dirt? I don't know. There doesn't appear to be rain, and the sun shines all the time. Like, there's no darkness. So there's lots of things that we know are quite different in the environment. So does things
Good point.
grow? And when they describe I spent a lot of time trying to envision it as if I was going to make a picture of it or something. When they did the corral, like the building,
Yes.
it's like there's stuff growing in what appears to be solid rock or stone or crystals or something. Like it's all so just happening, without any, appears no real.
Yeah.
Just a desire to have it that way.
Or is there a gardener? Is there an architect? Is there?
Yeah, is there, and here it's sort of such a physical thing, not that there is just a desire. I don't know. I
don't know.
Kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
So I think part of the education of the children is to connect them to their humanity.
Yeah.
Not just what Summerland is. What do you think?
Well, that is the other question. What are the children missing because they didn't get to grow up on Earth? Which I think.
Yeah, I've thought about that question a lot.
But on the other hand, I feel from what the demonstration was, I feel that they were learning about life in the heavens, in paradise. They are learning about life there and what is required for its existence and what is required for all the different level of grasses and all the different types. And I think that is they are learning about their environment. They are learning about the world they live in, because you want to know the world you live in. You are interested. That's what my feelings are. What's everybody else's feeling about it? Judith?
Well, I was going to say, you don't know that it doesn't rain in Summerland. It could rain. There's water there, right? And
Oh,
it's just like the earth.
good point.
And so that's how I feel.
Jill?
I forgot the rest of the question.
Sorry, it's okay, Judith. Go ahead, Jill.
Well, wouldn't the same laws apply, like as far as like the scientific laws, like all plants need sunlight and rain or water? Like, wouldn't those same laws apply
Or
in the spirit world? Like,
or because they are aware of other elements in the environment you can extract. Therefore, they utilize other laws. Like, could it be that the law of love that you have, the different laws that exist there, is enough? Could it be that? Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, just my personal feelings on it is that God's designed specific laws, like on earth, so plants grow, but then we can enact certain laws to make things, like how in one of the talks it was Archangel Michael said that we could grow an apple tree overnight. So that takes knowing about these different laws. And I feel a bit with the grass, because she was showing the really coarsest grass, which was like a grass on earth, and then obviously then it becomes more beautiful, which I feel must be depending upon our soul conditions. Better, like exactly what you're saying, Mila, as our condition of love improves, then our environment reflects that, and then we have more power. As we learn about more laws, then I feel we can have things grow much quicker. Like they don't have to just follow the process that it currently does, but it's on earth when we're not having much impact on it.
And it's still mathematical. It's still laws of nature. Like, there's still laws that we haven't discovered because we haven't improved our condition or haven't desired to. Just like law of thermodynamics, is a step up of law of gravity, like Jesus explains in his the laws series. So you're allowed to fly because you discover the laws that allow you to overcome gravity in certain circumstances. There are many other laws. Like, imagine when Earth was in the 6th, 5th, 4th sphere. Or like when that was in that sphere, we were creating stuff that was like phenomenal. Like, that's what the Atlantis was about. People were in the 4th, 3rd sphere at that time, and it was phenomenal. It just would look magical, but they were aware of the laws. What do you feel the children are missing out because they didn't have Earth lives? What have they lost, you feel? Karen?
I think there's probably a lot, and I'm not aware of probably most of it, what you're missing out on, but I feel like it's a bit how on earth there's this delay, like seeming delay when we're, like, say when we do something, I don't know how to explain it properly. Just on earth, it's the learning process and things. I don't know how to explain it.
Closer. We have to develop more desire, a stronger desire, in order to continue.
I think maybe I'm trying to say in the spirit world it's more instant, like there's more instant feedback, whereas here, and because as we're learning, it's not as
feedback, like law of compensation, law of cause and effect.
Things, and whilst it is I don't know. I'm getting a bit confused now because the law of compensation is always instant, isn't it? It's always instant on our soul, but we're maybe not as but I feel there's laws on earth that maybe aren't as prevalent in the spirit world that we can learn. I'm just going to stop. I'm not making much sense.
Judith and then Selena.
Well, I guess would say they don't get hurt in heaven, so a person can't fall and hurt themselves or die.
So what if they missed out if they had grown up on Earth? Because them not getting a life on Earth it does create some kind of a they're missing out on something. What do you
Yeah,
think that is? Yeah.
I've wondered that myself. I mean, I guess it would be the physicality of it,
Yeah.
physical sensations that they can't feel because they don't have a physical body.
So
And
how
I
has
wondered
that,
how upset they get about it, that eventually, like when a child dies and doesn't get an earth experience, do they regret that and have anger over that after a period of time?
and also, is there something in their soul development that is different because of it? Because I remember Jesus saying one time that people who have had earth experiences have stronger desires because it takes more to overcome so much that's coming at you all the time.
Yeah, and God designed us to be physical. So there's a reason for it.
There's a reason for it. Yeah. Okay.
So,
Selena, Jill.
Okay. Well, I just remember a couple of points that Jesus somewhere has talked about in regards to that. For instance, depending on the denial perhaps of the child's existence of the parents, like they affect the development of the child in the
Yeah.
spirit world. Like it's not just all perfect
Yeah.
for every child.
Mhm.
It's also affected by the connection to the parents, and that the better the connection or the better the acknowledgement of the parents, the more able they are. So there is a connection, like that it is important. The earth, what happened, like the earth connection is really important to development. So I would assume, and he says, when you pass, you can just play golf. Like,
Yeah.
sure, some people have fancy they're going to play golf all the time. Well, it's so easy, you don't even want to do it because you can just do it. So that's something a child passing wouldn't even have those experience of striving and feeling accomplishment from doing those physical things. That maybe that's kind of that feeling wouldn't happen for them. That feeling maybe wouldn't be the same for them as it would be for a child born on Earth. So there's like things that get kind of missed.
I like what Judith bring up there, that God did create for life to begin on Earth.
Mhm.
And in fact, the way God created it, there was never even death intended ever. You could live as long as you want, and there was a reason. So now I'm going, what was the reason? I'm curious now. Maybe this book group is how my curiosity gets created. Maybe I'm in the garden right now. Question. Jill, go ahead.
And I think, really like simple things, like they would never experience time in the way that we experience it.
Mhm.
They would never experience, well, the way that, if we're talking about a child currently, they would never experience getting older. Like they would never experience that physical degradation. They would never experience getting exhausted. They would never experience being tired.
So what have they lost because of it? I mean, I'm just putting metaphorical question here, right? Hypothetical question here, because I guess we can't. I'm trying to imagine, because right now all I have. Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
One thing they can't do is they can't reproduce. They can't raise their own children and learn the role of being a parent to a child, the way God is towards us.
Yes. Okay, that is definitely a loss. Huh. Yeah, I think because when I was reading, Selena, when I was reading the chapter and looking at Summerland, like Laura said, it's like, oh, well, 2 of my kids grew up there. I think they had it better off. And I'm going, okay. I'm definitely not appreciating at this point that there was something lost by there, because I think I'm avoiding some grief, my own grief, by saying they were better off there. And I'm also avoiding my own grief by saying, well, I would have had a better life if I'd grown up in Summerland. But something is missed by not having an Earth life, even though I felt like it was nothing but trouble. So I'm trying to open myself to feeling God's truth about it. Like, what am I missing here in my perception? And how is my current perception then harming my environment? Because my attitude is affecting my environment. And my attitude right now is, Earth life is overrated. No biggie. It's like, that's probably not a very harmony taught right now. And I'm curious. I would like to correct it. I like to feel God's truth about it. Selena?
I forget.
Okay. Karen? And Laura, did you raise your hand? I can't remember. Okay. Karen, go ahead. Karen, you, oh, okay, Laura, go ahead. Oh.
I was just going to say there might be something like related to that in this quote in the book, where it's talking about like happy children to be thus cared for and protected, like when they get to Summerland. And it says, no man or child liveth or dieth to himself. Our times are in his hand, and it is better so. For the present it may be you see through a glass darkly, but presently you too will understand.
Okay.
Then you will find God's leading was right after all. Great as is the compensation of the child, you may, if you will, by doing your duty nobly, find an even greater reward awaiting yourselves.
Yeah.
That kind of speaks to me that
Yeah.
as good a place as they are in Summerland, we could go to an even better place than they would go to. And that can only be like, you need to be on earth to go through the process. And I just remember Jesus also spoken about learning to use your will on earth, like desire. It makes it much easier when you're in the spirit world.
Okay.
I feel there's a lot of things about the earth that I don't really understand them.
That we need to at least ask to want to learn about. Okay, and then Laura, and then Selena.
And Mike.
And Michael.
Yeah, I was just thinking it might be fun to pray on it over the week and see what we come up with. See if we get any kind of
That'd be great. That'd be a good experiment. Thank you.
Yeah, and also with I think is it one of them is a foster parent for one of the children. Is it Kushner? No.
Yes.
Yeah. So I feel like the parental experience in terms of the way God intended it, as in that God is the parent.
Yeah.
And so we can still love that child that we're fostering or that we're looking after as equally as we would love a child that we birthed. And that there's really no difference in that, and there probably shouldn't be. The way that we love a child should be just the way that we love a child.
Okay. There's still another way to get what you have lost by not being a physical parent on it.
Yeah, and the child then gets the experience of having being nurtured by an older person. So yeah.
Thank you. Was it Selena?
And I think it was on a video or something somewhere, that as much as they are being raised like perfectly in love, they still at some point have to make a choice to choose God's way. It's not like automatic. So that would be a development of will. And maybe that's what they're talking about, is that we've had more, it's like more pressure to have to use our will, almost like more, we can really see the effects of using our will in good ways, in harmony or not harmony. So maybe they don't really, when it comes to that point where they have to make decisions, like come to maturity, it's no easier or even less easier to choose God's way because they haven't had that exercise the will muscle, as Mary called it. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Michael?
Maybe there's something character building about being on earth and being in adversity.
Yeah.
And because I'm thinking in the spirit world, the children they're grouped by their love development. Yeah. And they're also they're protected from the harmful emotions of their parents. So on earth, you would have children of all developments together and influences. So they would miss that.
Yes. And you get
they would miss seeing the effect of sin, I think, so clearly.
Okay.
In terms of illness and harm towards other people. I know that there are things that are not essential for their soul's growth, and I would, in a perfect world, no one would be exposed to that.
Yes.
But
There
yeah,
is
go ahead.
something about Earth's life. Yeah, let's reflect on that. I'm really curious about what was God's purpose for creating Earth's life that then get missed out when children end up in Summerland too early. Virginia, I know you raised your hand, but I'm keeping an eye on time. I do have to be on another call in about 5 minutes. So I'm going to wrap it up. Boy, we got very excited about today's topic. I like that. I love how enthusiastic we are, and that we are right now in the garden asking questions. But maybe someday we'll have a different kind of openness to our spirit guides, where we could then also start receiving answers fairly quickly, because we can feel the connection and receive the answers. That'd be kind of fun to have someday. All right, well, thank you. I survived an hour and a half with my headache, so that's not too bad. And then next week, I think the next chapter is pretty long.